We are on mitzvah number 80, which is officially the mitzvah to help unload an animal that's buckling under its load. It means like the Torah describes a situation where a guy is walking along and you see an animal, and the animal is buckling under load. A guy loaded it up too much. A donkey is rovetz tachas maso. The donkey is crouching under the load. So you have an obligation to get involved, and there's also an obligation to help load up a donkey. Here is the obligation to unload the donkey, and because of what's called tsar balei chayim. Tsar balei chayim means that you don't want an animal to suffer. So there's an official mitzvah. There's a concept called causing an animal to suffer, which you're not allowed to. And this is the verse. This pasuk is the source for the halacha that you're not allowed to cause an animal to suffer. Now, if you see two people stuck with their donkeys, two donkeys are unloading. One of them is your enemy, and one of them is your friend. One of them you don't like, and one of them you do like. Who should you help first?
Friend.
Nope.
No, your enemy.
Why?
The mashal is like because you're trying to like sort of overcome that sort of anger for the
Correct.
person that you don't like.
Correct. You go against your nature. The idea behind it is there's a practical idea and there's a deeper idea. The practical idea is that if you help a guy load or unload his donkey, then in the two of you don't like each other. You're always looking across the shul at each other, and you're always kind of eyeing each other. You might even be competitors. Then you unload him. He says, "Hey, thanks a lot." And you say, "How about a beer?" And you find out he's not such a bad guy after all. And somehow it'll break the ice. That's on a practical level. On a deeper level, it's because when Rabbi, everybody knows the famous definition of love, which Rabbi Dessler introduced us to. That love is the result of giving. Because when you give to somebody, you somehow see yourself, you've invested of yourself in that other person, and we all love ourselves. And therefore, when I've invested in the other person, it naturally becomes, it creates a love. That's why the love from a parent to a child is a stronger love than from a child to a parent. Chas v'shalom, a child who loses a parent is nowhere nearly as devastated as a parent who loses a child. Because a parent loses a child, they've invested in the child. Children give to parents. Children give parents a lot of delight, a lot of happiness, but not intentional giving. They're not investing in the parents. They're just, by being who they are, so they give to parents a certain joy and a certain satisfaction. Parents are actively investing in a kid. God designed babies to wake up at 2 in the morning. That's for the benefit of parents. Because when you got to get up at 2 in the morning with your child, you're investing into your child. You're putting a lot of your life and your energy into the child. And gentlemen, I guarantee you're going to do it when you have children, and you're going to change diapers just like the rest of us did, even though you think you're not. When I was going out with my wife, I said, by the way, we're getting close to an engagement. And I said to her, by the way, I just want you to know something. I don't do diapers. And she said to me, well, I don't either. Now what? I did them like a trooper. I did them like the best of them. And you're going to do it too, and you're going to take your kids to the doctors, and you're going to play with it. Everything you do, you're going to earn money for them. By giving, that's why the bond between a parent, chas v'shalom, a parent loses a child, they never get over it. A child loses a parent, you get on with life. That's a natural course of events. When you go and you help somebody, you help him unload his donkey, you're giving to that person. By giving to the person, that naturally helps the to dissolve. So, the example they give, just imagine you're driving on the highway and you see an accident. So you stop your car and you drive some guy to the hospital. And you get him to the hospital, into the emergency room, and you get him in, the guy's bleeding, and they take him in. Okay. The rest of the day you're wondering, what happened to Mr. Murphy? So you call the hospital, there's a guy in, Joe Murphy came in today. How's he doing? Right? And you keep calling and try to find out. Now, why are you so interested? There are a lot of Mr. Murphys across the country who end up in hospitals every day. A lot of guys in car accidents. And why are you interested in this one particular individual? The answer is because you were involved with it. That's why. Because you were involved with that individual, therefore you're part of the picture. Therefore, it creates the bond. So when you see somebody else's animal, there are halachic ramifications, how far it has to be, and so on and so forth. You have an obligation to help him. Now, there's a very interesting question that was asked. One of the great halachic commentaries was called the Noda B'Yehuda, Rabbi Yechezkel Landau, who lived in Prague. He was in the same era as the Gaon of Vilna. Same time, we're talking about the late 18th century, early 19th century. So Rabbi Cheskel Landau was once asked, and he wrote these correspondences, like many halachic, like that were like Rabbi Moshe Feinstein and many others. So he was once there. Rabbi Cheskel Landau was once asked, the Noda B'Yehuda, he was once asked, a man who is a very wealthy man living somewhere in Russia writes him a letter, and he wants to know, he's got a very large holdings of forests in Russia. Apparently there are a lot of forests in Russia. And he's got, he owns these forests. That was one of the professions, one of the things that people made a lot of money on was lumber. They own these forests, and they're absolutely endless in Russia. Yeah, endless forests, and you just, and you have chopped down lumber. So this guy owned a tremendous amount of vast holdings of forests. And he wanted to know if he's allowed to go hunting for entertainment. He enjoys hunting animals, right? He's not hunting for their hides or their skins. He just enjoys shooting bears, shooting whatever it is that he's hunting for. That was his question to Rabbi Cheskel. Now, any Jew, instinctively, you feel, no, it's got to be forbidden. To just go around shooting animals got to be forbidden. So it's interesting because Rabbi Landau doesn't say it in those terms. It's a very interesting foundation. He says that animals were given to us for our use. Right? We could eat them, you can make clothing out of them, you can make shoes out of them, make whatever, wallets, whatever you make. The only limitation on us is to cause an animal unnecessary suffering. Just to go out, let's go make an animal suffer. Let's see how much pain we can put this animal in. That you're not allowed to do. But if it requires hunting an animal because you want the hides, you're allowed to shoot an animal for the hides, absolutely okay. And it's not, if an animal suffers, it's not unnecessary suffering. You're trying to do whatever you can in order to hunt the animal. So he says, if a person is hunting for entertainment, and you're not causing the animal unnecessary, you're trying to kill the animal dies instantly, then by the letter of the law, it's difficult to say that it's forbidden. However, he says to this guy, what does it say about you as a person, considering that in the Torah, the only one we find who is a hunter was either Nimrod, who rebelled against God, or Esav, who was Esav, right? And so what does it say about you if you got to get your hunting, your relaxation by engaging in an activity that Nimrod and Esav were engaged in? So he says to the guy, by the letter of the law, it's difficult to say that it's forbidden, but it doesn't say much about you as a human being, assuming that you're only hunting them for your pleasure, not because you want to inflict pain. There's a very fine line over there. Then he says, in number two, if you go hunting in the Russian forests, there are wild animals there, like bears and lions and all sorts of, I don't know lions, but bears, certainly bears and other dangerous creatures. And the Torah forbids putting yourself in a situation of danger unless it's absolutely necessary in certain circumstances. Therefore, it's forbidden for you to go hunting in a situation where you're going to cause danger. Now, to go out and have, to go out and have, and again, I'm not really, you'd have to ask if you're interested in doing this, but sometimes people go out and they shoot birds, have a bird shooting contest. I'm not sure that according to halacha that's forbidden. I'm not sure that according to halacha, Jews don't do it. I met one kid here who told me that his father, he lived in Arizona. I think he lives in Phoenix. And his father would drive him out periodically into the desert, drive all the way out into there. They take one of these campers. They go out into the desert shooting. And they just park in the desert where you're nowhere near anybody. No one can even hear gunshots. You're all the way out in the desert. And I said to him, what did you shoot? He says, anything that moved. It was unbelievable fun. It's like, just say, little thing, and just shoot a snake, just went around and they went shooting out in the desert. So the idea that a person gets entertainment by killing something, that's very not Jewish. The only time that you're allowed to put your life in danger, according to halacha, is if it's for the need of your livelihood. Then you're allowed to engage in a job which is not inherently dangerous, but it carries an element of danger if you're not careful. So, for example, are you allowed to become an accountant? Can you become an accountant according to halacha? Yeah, absolutely. No, not too much danger being an accountant. The only accountants I know that ever got in trouble were in Atlanta when a guy went in and shot up an accounting agency. That happened in the United States. That could happen.
Financial fraud.
Yeah, financial fraud is jail, but it's not a life-threatening thing. Can you become a teacher in the United States public school system? don't know, it's getting a little more dangerous, right? That certainly could carry an element of danger. Any job that requires electric sensors when the kids come into the school. So I'm obviously being facetious, but not so facetious. Then what about becoming an electrician?
It's allowed.
Is it allowed? I mean, if you're not careful, a person can get electrocuted here. I get people get electrocuted. You're playing with electric cables. You're working for the electric company. You're up on. The answer is it's allowed because it's not a dangerous job. It is a job that carries an element of danger. Are you allowed to be a roofer? A guy who puts tile, what do they call the shillings on the roof, shingles on the roof. Can you do that? If you're not careful, it can be dangerous, right?
Like an ice road trucker.
What's that?
An ice road trucker.
What's an ice road trucker?
So from what I understand, in like Alaska, the roads like freeze over. So basically. Yeah. So they basically get paid like an incredible amount of money to like go across basically like what's the equivalent of that's why they call it ice roads. It's literally you're driving across like an icy plain. It's only for a few months and
If it's the sort, it's a good question. The answer is if it's the sort of thing that if you take the necessary precautions, there are idiots everywhere. But if it's the sort of thing that you take the necessary precautions, you'll be okay. Then it's permissible according to halacha. Something that is inherently dangerous, for instance, speedboat racing. So speedboat racing has a 33% mortality rate. That means 1 out of 3. Right? Tiddlywinks is much less. Speedboat racing is 1 out of 3 people die, right? Because a boat at 200 miles an hour, if it hits a choppy wave, the boat capsizes instantly. The guy's killed. It's like capsizing on concrete at 200 miles an hour because the water's hard. So the upside of speedboat racing is there are never any sprains, right? No one ever has a sprained ankle in speedboat racing. It's either death or you return. Right, so there's a 33% mortality rate. That would be clearly forbidden according to halacha. To be a Hollywood stuntman, where you can't, even when you take all the precautions, you're too much left to chance. I'm not sure that would be okay according to halacha, but it could be. It would. It could be. I don't think so. Something that carries a serious risk, in spite of all the precautions, there's still a serious risk that would be forbidden. But something where if you take the proper precautions, you're generally okay. Accidents could happen anywhere. So in Chicago, there was once a guy working on the L. Chicago doesn't have a subway. Chicago has the L, the elevated train. I don't know. Maybe does it ever go down underneath?
Only the red line.
Only the red line. Okay, but most of it is the L. So they have what's called the third rail. The electric rail, the electrified rail. So one of the workers who was working on the thing was bent over the electric rail, and he was wearing a metal, kind of a thing around his neck that happened to swing down and it hit the electric rail. Okay, so he died. He had a guy here in the yeshiva once years ago told me that his grandfather was a lineman in somewhere in Texas, one of these electric linemen guys, and his grandfather was electrocuted to death. He stepped back and there was something exposed behind him which he hadn't noticed, and so he was electrocuted to death. Okay, that could happen. That could happen in different areas. But something which is inherently dangerous, to go hunting where it's not necessary, you're not doing it for a livelihood. If you were hunting for a livelihood and you're equipped with a gun and there's an element of danger, that could be because you're hunting for a livelihood. For a livelihood, the Torah recognizes that there are certain leniencies when it comes to making a livelihood, because that's basic. What do you call? I'm just giving you. I'm not going into the halachic details. I'm just going into the framework. Halachic details is what do you call? It has to be. Each case has to be checked out individually. I'm just telling you what the halacha says before you get into the details. And so somebody who is involved in an occupation which carries an element of danger, you can be a fisherman, you're allowed to travel even though there's an element of danger, chas v'shalom, person can get into an accident or something happen. That happens, that the Torah doesn't forbid, otherwise a person will not be able to survive. On the other hand, for entertainment purposes, there are poskim who say you're not allowed to ski. There are poskim who say that you're not allowed to ski because skiing carries a serious element of danger of a broken limb, and a not unrealistic element of danger of death. In 1 year, the world champion speed skiing woman was killed. That same year, David Kennedy was killed on skis. He was playing football on skis, hit a tree. And Sonny, remember Sonny and Cher? Sonny Bono, he also hit a tree. And he got that was the one year that was all on skis. We had a girl in Chicago who was in the religious community who was on skis, and she was going down the slopes, and she tried to avoid hitting somebody, and she ended up hitting a tree, and she was brain damaged. She ended up in the rehabilitation. My mother was a rehab nurse, so she ended up under her care in rehab. So, it was something that carries such an element of risk, according to halacha, for entertainment purposes. I'm not saying that it's forbidden, but there are poskim that would say it's forbidden. There are poskim that would say that tackle football is forbidden. I never played a tackle football game where there wasn't at least a broken finger. There's always somebody who broke a finger in a tackle football. When we just get together and play it, my father told me that if I play tackle football, if I come back with a broken arm, he'll break my other arm. So I was very careful. I made sure to just jump onto the pile after the pile was already down. The guys didn't like that. I enjoyed it. Once a guy was tackled, then I jumped on. But anything that involves basketball, you could sprain an ankle playing basketball. Okay, that's not considered a dangerous occupation. But that's what the halacha says. Now, say what? Boxing is pretty clear to be forbidden according to halacha. Yeah. Because not only you could get killed, you could be killed. You could do some killing. There are over 30 boxers have died in the ring since 1960, I think.
That's very low statistics, though.
Well, it's much less in chess. It's much less in other things. I mean, but people are dying. There's no question in my mind. Auto racing would be forbidden. I was in the States when in one of the auto races, the car hit a wall. The tire came flying out and killed 2 people in the stands, in Michigan, because the tire is coming flying off of a car at 200 miles an hour, and that tire is about as thick as this table. And it's coming in, it's hitting the guy to kill 2 people in the stands. There's no question that auto racing would be forbidden. Anything that carries a serious risk of death or injury in halacha would be forbidden unless it's for serious parnasa purposes, normal parnasa purposes. Other than that, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who'd say it's permissible. So auto racing, other stuff, that's all. None of that's any good. It's fun to watch, but it's not. Auto racing, not on TV. Not on TV. If you're there, I'm sure watching, even just on the street, when you see a car speeding on the street, aren't you mesmerized? When you go out on the street, you see, wow, that guy's cooking. You think he's an idiot, but he's cooking. I want to see him. Yeah. Your name is? Shenhab. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So I was wondering, what's the Torah's general stance on entertainment? Like, for instance, I always wondered to myself, like, okay, I know you can't watch movies, but let's say some people like to work out for entertainment. What is it like? Is
Good.
there any way to
Very.
that?
Yes, it's a very good question. What is the Torah's view on it? That's an extremely important question, and the answer to that is that each person has to know exactly where he's holding, what his needs are. Okay, that's a very important question. That means as follows: the Torah was given for us. And the mistake that most people make is they look at Torah from the outside and they think, well, you're sacrificing this world for the next world, living with some sort of idea of an eternal existence for the soul. That's a misrepresentation of Torah. Torah will teach you how to live this world to the fullest and then get the reward in the world to come. Okay? Now, the first thing you have to distinguish is there's a difference between, ask anybody, what's your goal in life? Most people say they like to be happy, fulfilled, content, whatever word you want to use it. The mistake, what's that?
Internal.
Some sort of, everybody wants to be happy, right? Everyone wants to be happy, fulfilled, content. Nobody you'll meet says, what's your goal in life? I want to be miserable. All right, so just become a Cub fan, that's all it takes. Nobody's going to tell you want to be miserable. The goal is to be happy. The mistake people make is they equate pleasure with happiness. That's a fundamental mistake. Does pleasure help to achieve happiness? Yes, but pleasure itself is not happiness. Pleasure is animalism if it's misused. If it's used to assist you, then it is not only enjoyable, it is also fulfilling. Therefore, a Torah Jew has to gauge himself. Where am I holding? And where is my real level? And what do I need to assist me to maintain an upbeat personality so that I could serve God better? Okay? So for example, the first thing we have to do is we have to draw a red line. The red line is if it's prohibited. Now you said movies are prohibited. Not all movies are prohibited. There are plenty of innocent movies. Not plenty. Sorry, The Lion King. What do you call it? You could find theoretically a movie that's innocent. It could be they make movies for the frum girls. They make movies for frum girls now with only women actors or men actors, but it's all very very nothing.
There was a movie that came out I think last year called Saving Mr. Banks, and it was about Mary Poppins and the whole history about how that got started in Disney.
Okay.
Very
Clean and clean. Okay, so if there are women in it, so men can't watch it. Okay, but there was once a movie called 12 Angry Men. The entire movie was a jury trying to decide a trial. Fascinating movie. Fascinating movie. A jury trying to decide. They have a logical argument. It looked like a Gemara shear. Fascinating movie, how the arguments went back. Okay, whatever it is, theoretically it's not. So you can watch a basketball game. Problem is the commercials. See, there's a prohibition. A man is not allowed to look at a woman with intent to get pleasure. Right? You could talk to a woman, and if a woman speaks to you, you could talk to her, but you must not intend to get pleasure. Now, if you want to watch the news at night, the problem is in the United States, if you turn on the news and they have a woman, what do you call her, a woman sportscaster, a woman who's the anchor woman over there in the news, they usually take attractive women. That's a problem because now you're looking at an attractive woman. That's a problem according from a red line of halacha because that's prohibited. Now, what about I want to go play tennis, right? Nothing wrong with playing tennis. There's nothing wrong with watching a sports match. There's nothing wrong with hiking in the mountains. Each person has to gauge how much, each person has to gauge what do I want versus what do I need. What do I want versus what do I need? Everybody needs some downtime. A person who becomes too intense and is only learning and doing mitzvahs all day, he'd crack up. And God didn't give us the world to do that. We're not at that level. Maybe the Vilna Gaon is, and maybe Rabbi Akiva Eiger was in the Chafetz Chaim. We're not at that level. So if the Chafetz Chaim sat down to supper, and the Chafetz Chaim once he took a piece of chicken or a piece of meat, he said, wow, this is really tasty. And he immediately stopped eating. He wouldn't eat anymore. He said he's too interested in the food. If he already got caught up in the food at that level, then for the Chafetz Chaim, he said, I have to pull back. Not too much. I got too into it. When we sit down at a meal, as long as the food is kosher and we make a bracha properly, then go for it. That's where we're holding. We're just not at that level. And if I have to restrain myself, what the acid test is? Guys have asked me, there's this idea of self-control and do I need to eat cake? What the acid test is? Try skipping. Let's say you go to lunch and you don't have your second piece of schnitzel. Right? You have one piece of schnitzel. You don't have the second piece or supper, whatever it is. You decide I'm gonna exercise self-control. What's the test? You know what the test is? The test is, what do you do after supper when you're studying with your chavrusa, when you go to a daf yomi shir? You sit down at the daf yomi shir. If when you sit down at the daf yomi shir, he's reading the Gemara, Amar Rava schnitzel, all you're thinking is that second piece of schnitzel, you're not holding at the level to skip it. Just eat your second piece of schnitzel. But if you sit down at the Gemara and you feel, hey, you know what? I exercise self-control. I really feel good. You learn good and you're upbeat. The test in life is, am I upbeat? Are you upbeat? Then you're doing the right thing. If you're tense, you're nervous, and you're not doing the right thing, as long as it's not a red line. If it's a red line, we don't care how tense you are. A red line, you can't cross. Yeah, but if I don't watch TV, if I don't do something which is forbidden, I'm going to be tense. Well, then be tense, because in Gehenna it's more intense. So you better be tense here than to be tense there. That we don't have an option. Each person has to know, what do I want, which we have to control, and what do I need? What's the minimum that I need? I told my wife years ago when I first got married, where I was learning in Kollel, and at the end of a day of learning, I just needed to relax. I got to clear my head a little bit. So I said to my wife, listen, I got to have some outside diversion, either politics or sports. So my wife said to me, definitely sports. She hated politics. She said, definitely sports. Right, which I would have done anyway. But there's got to be an innocent diversion depending on who you are and depending on what your level is. When you're married, that's one of the benefits, because a wife knows the line between what you want and what you need, right? But every person has to know what their level is. There's nothing wrong with entertaining, nothing wrong with playing chess, there's nothing wrong with playing ball, there's nothing wrong with going somewhere and doing something, as long as you're not crossing the red lines and as long as you've gauged yourself. And I would tell you, I want to add one other thing. When you do go to play tennis, don't think every minute, this is to serve Hashem. I am now serving Hashem. You know, that's not what your job is when you're serving. When you play tennis, forget about everything except the opponent across from you and play the game to the best. Don't start every instant, because then you drive yourself nuts. You won't get anything out of it. You think to yourself, I'm going, even when you sleep at night, think once when you're going to sleep, I am now going to sleep to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu because I can't do anything productive if I'm tired. You now get, for the amount of hours you sleep, you get 6 or 7 or 8 hours of reward for serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because He created us with the need to sleep. So if you get into bed because this is my favorite activity to be practiced and perfected, I am a sleeper. Then you're doing it for yourself. But I can't help it. I'm a human being. I didn't create myself. I was created, and I'm created with the need to sleep. So I'm sleeping because if I don't sleep, I'm not going to be able to daven. I'm going to be snapping at everybody. That becomes part of your service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. And one of the mistakes people make is they sometimes jump too far. And again, the gauge is, are you feeling tense or are you feeling upbeat? And if you're feeling tense, then you probably took on too much too soon, and you're trying to become the Chafetz Chaim overnight, and you shouldn't be. That's the test. And a person has to know what's permissible. The other thing you have to know is, make sure you know what's forbidden, and make sure you know what isn't forbidden. Some guys say, Goyish music? Osir, right? Who told you it's Osir? Who told you it's Osir? Where did it say, who said it's Osir? Who said Goyish music is Osir? How do you know? You all of a sudden, because you became a Baal Tshuva for your Baal Tshuva for 3 weeks, so now you've decided what's Usher, what's what. How do you know it's Usher? Who told you it's Usher? May not be. What's that?
No, I had an incident like that when I was just like, I was learning back in New York. I was learning a lot, and my brother, I was in the car with him. Me and him got into a big fight because he kept on putting on rap music, and I'm like, I just don't want to hear this right now. I just was learning this morning. I'm in like a different zone. We have a long ride together. And he's like, so me and him ended up getting to a fight, and then I thought about it after. I was like, it wasn't worth the fight, that's for sure. Right.
Nothing's worth the fight. Now, the question is what do you say about rap? So first of all, I was talking about music. That's first of all. Rap, which I actually have a sneaking admiration for rap. I actually kind of enjoy it. Once in a while I get on the bus and I hear the rap. I actually like it. But if the rap is filth, if they're speaking, if they're filth, and they're violent, and that's already a problem contaminating ourselves. I don't want to hear the schmutz. I don't want to hear it, and we shouldn't hear it. To say that the music itself is usher, it's difficult to say that it's usher. Music, Rabbi Moshe Fine says, does not become tameh. So is it beyond your level already? Are you beyond it? Probably. Are we beyond that? Probably. I may not be beyond Elton John. So if there are no suggestive lyrics, and it's not a woman singing, and it's not filth, then it's not prohibited. Are you holding at that level? Depends. Depends how much you need it. What were you doing? Think what you were doing a year ago compared to what you're doing now. A year ago, if all you were doing was listening to Goyish music, you'd have crowned yourself. Right? You understand? So here, a person has grown so much that that's his outlet. Then somebody else said, Aser. Who told you it's Aser? Maybe it's Aser to tell people things are Aser. Maybe that's Aser. And what are you going around telling people it's Aser for? And it's not Aser. So that's a standard thing. Now, if somebody is listening to it in the car, maybe he needs to listen to it. Why should I take away his enjoyment if it's not Aser? So if I can't hear it at all because it's a woman singing, I have a choice. I could say, are you able to turn off the music? No. Okay, could I ask you a favor? Could you stop the car? Why? I have to get out. I'm not telling you what to do, but I can't listen to it because it's forbidden. That you're allowed to do. But to impose on somebody else because you find it distasteful. In music, by the way, I heard a profound line from somebody. A guy asked the Rosh Yeshiva, this is already people who are already mainstream yeshiva guys. So he asked one of his rebbeim, is music forbidden? How do I know if I could listen, should or shouldn't listen to this music? So the Rosh Yeshiva said to him, what's your davening mincha like after you listen to that music? That's the test. Right? So if you listen to some classical music, I think your mincha, and then you go to daven mincha, I think you're going to have a good mincha. Right? If you listen to rap, and then you go to daven mincha, I'd be very careful when you pound your chest twice in Shemona Esrei, after listening to rap, because your mood has changed. You understand? That's really the test. That's really the test. Yeah, Tov, you go.
Because 99.9% of rap is either about violence frivolous activities or they swear.
Right. I would say rap of all things. Rap is definitely not something, and rap is very much a mood changing thing. See, you gauge music. Not the permissible or forbidden, but the appropriateness of music is gauged by, if you're driving and you got a car, you got music on the in your car, and it's just kind of music that makes you want to roll up your sleeves, and drive faster. Probably we could do better than that. We could do better than that. But
the radio is the problem in general because it became mainstream nowadays to kind of whatever you put on, you're gonna hear things.
So you switch. If it's vulgar, you switch. You
Yeah.
switch.
The radio is pretty much dead anyway.
I'm
nowadays.
saying,
Yeah.
not-
Whatever it is. That's just an example. Whatever it is.
Because if you're driving with your family,
You're right. If it's vulgar, you try to avoid it. Try to avoid vulgar. On the other hand, I have Shabbos Zmiros. I once heard that Simon and Garfunkel took their Shabbos took their tunes. Simon and Garfunkel are Jewish. So somebody once said that their tunes came from their grandfather's Shabbos Zmiros. So I heard that and I was intrigued by that because their music is a little bit different than other music. It was kind of this very Jewishy music. And so I decided to try it to see what happens. So I took Scarborough Fair and I put it to Menucha V'Simcha. And it fits like a glove. Menucha V'Simcha or La Yudim Yom Shabbos Ein Yom Machmadim Shemra V'Zaycha V'Mamidim da 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 da. It was unbelievable. It fit like a glove. So I started singing it like that in the house. Then I tried. I never found another one that fit. But that one was the first, beginner's luck. None of the other ones. Then Rabbi Salinger, who knows about these things, told me that that's a nonsense. And Scarborough Fair was actually an old Irish ballad, which Simon and Garfunkel stole from there. Okay, whatever it was. At the end of the day, so I was singing Menucha V'Simcha to that thing. So then my kids grew up hearing that. They didn't know Simon and Garfunkel. They just heard that, and it's a nice little, Menucha da 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 da. So when one of my kids started playing, he picked up on his own. He taught himself how to play the electric, what's it called? The keyboard. He learned how to play a keyboard. So I bought him a keyboard. So the keyboards come with like 100 buttons that you can pick up 100 lead-ins to the song. So he's playing around with this new keyboard, and he's hitting these lead-ins from all the 5 popular pop songs, And also he comes running in, he says, "Daddy, they even have Shabbos Zmiros on it." So I said, "What are you talking about?" So I go in there, and he pictures the thing, da 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 da. In his mind, that was it. So the music itself is not inherent. There's nothing inherently wrong with the music. If the music is not wrong, a lot of the Zmiros that we have, by the way, where do you think the Shabbos Zmiros come from? Many of them are either German beer pub, or Russian army marching tunes. Where do you think they come from? Dun 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 dun. These are all where you can just see the guys in a beer pub, bunch of crowds, with their beer mugs, go dun 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 dun, or Russian dun 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 dun. You ever been to Hasidic Tish? You ever hear some of the music at the Hasidic Tish? Sounds like a right. If you close your eyes, you think you're at a Russian army demonstration. Right? Right? They're all marching. So the music isn't inherently wrong. The music has the flavor of the music. Is the flavor of music, is it an aggressive music or is it a refined type of music? And that's the answer to all entertainment.
About techno? A little bit about techno?
Love techno.
Because there's a genre, I don't know if you know what it is.
I know what techno is, yeah.
So basically there's a big a trend going on in America where I'm sure it's going on all over in the world where they have these festivals where people go and they jump to pretty much the...
No, we don't go. We don't go to any sort of...
no, not to go to them. I know. That's what I'm trying to bring out. That yes, to go to them, of course, is a problem because people are dressed up and doing stupid things.
Not dressed up, yeah.
The whole problem its own. But I'm saying that same music, at the end of the day, a lot of times it doesn't have words, or if the words are more like melodies. Yeah, it's like soft.
You're asking me a question. The bottom line is, it's not usser. Bottom line is not usser. Is it recommended for or against? That would depend on the music, on the individual music. But it's not. Don't say in the entertainment area. One has to be very careful. If it's not crossing the red line, then not to get caught up with Balchuva-itis and make everything usser. Rabbi Gottlieb once told me that he had a kid in the yeshiva whose parents wanted him to come home for Rosh Hashanah. So the kid sent his parents a letter detailing 10 reasons why he's not allowed to go home. So his father happened to be a very well-educated Reform Jew who knew Rabbi Gottlieb from the old country. So he sent Rabbi Gottlieb a copy of the letter that his son had sent him. So Rabbi Gottlieb told me, 9 out of the 10 reasons that the kid gave were wrong, and the 10th one was probably wrong. So before you go on rendering things that are prohibited, this is prohibited, that's prohibited, make sure you know what you're talking about. That's the rule.